So, the Realme GT7 is a specs monster. You get a 7000 mAh battery, Dimensity 9400E, 120Hz AMOLED display, IP69 rating, and triple camera setups with a proper 2x telephoto camera. But packing specs is one thing and actually delivering in real-world performance is another. So I've done like a detailed testing of the phone, and this is my detailed review of it as well, where I've also tried to compare it against its most important competitor, the OnePlus 13R. And trust me, the battle is really close. Alright, if you're here for the first time, I'm Ershad. This is Track and Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Now, the Realme GT7's design is something that strikes me as impressive because Realme has managed to fit a 7000 mAh battery inside an 8.3mm slim chassis. Also, when I first picked it up, I felt like, wait a second, this is a 7000 mAh battery. It should definitely feel heavier, but it doesn't. In fact, when you compare the weight of both these phones side by side, they're largely similar. But that's also because there's a twist in the tale. The GT7 is an all-plastic build, whether it's the rear or the frame. Whereas OnePlus uses glass on the rear and a metal frame as well, which is definitely more premium. Which is also why, despite having a slightly smaller battery, it might feel heavier, but the in-hand feel definitely is better compared to the Realme GT7. Now, apart from that, the displays on both these phones are protected by Corning's Gorilla Glass 7i, which is awesome. But with the OnePlus 13R, you do get that alert slider, which a lot of people love, which is definitely going to go away and turn into a plus key apparently. GT7 definitely has one advantage in its build, and that is the fact that it comes with IP68 and 69 rating. With OnePlus, you only get IP65. But one thing that I really don't like about both these phones is the fact that you get a Type-C 2.0 port at the bottom. No faster USB speeds. Now, both these phones have very similar displays. What you get is 6.78 inches of AMOLED goodness with 120Hz refresh rate as well. But there are two key differences. So the OnePlus 13R actually uses LTPO technology, which means that it can refresh anywhere between 1 Hz to 120 Hz, and it also reaches a peak brightness of 4500 nits. The Realme GT7, on the other hand, quite literally doesn't have LTPO, but it does offer variable refresh rate. So basically, you can switch between 1690, 120 depending on the content that's playing on the screen. But the GT7 definitely has higher peak brightness when you're watching HDR content of 6000 nits. Now, of course, when you're measuring peak brightness for HDR, it will mostly be anywhere between a 1% to a 10% window. Now, both the phones also have 2160 Hz of PWM dimming, so anybody who is sensitive to low light flicker on AMOLED panels and high refresh rate AMOLED panels, that's not going to be a problem. Now, since both these phones are sourcing their panels from BOE, the color reproduction is absolutely similar because we tested both side by side and we couldn't tell a difference in skin tones or landscape colors. Everything was very similar. Now, when you're watching HDR content on YouTube, sometimes the OnePlus 13R can feel brighter, which is kind of odd because it has 4500 nits of peak brightness as opposed to 6000 nits, but it's just like a very tiny difference. But the good thing about both the phones is that you do get support for Dolby Vision in Netflix, which is awesome because you can watch proper, like, Dolby Vision tuned content, but it's not like the best tuning or anything with respect to the HDR gradation. Some other flagships do perform better. Now, with respect to outdoor brightness, both are almost equally similar. There's nothing separating the two. You know what's also same? Not just the displays, but also the performance of the stereo speakers on both these phones. I couldn't tell a difference when I listened to them side by side. Tell me if you guys can find any difference. The similarities don't end there. Even the haptic feedback tuning is largely very identical because of the OHaptic support that you get. It's very tight, it's very crisp, and the way it has been integrated into the UI itself is pretty awesome. And both these phones are also very good if you are somebody who likes listening to Bluetooth high-res codec through your TWS, then it supports both the LSDC and LDAC codec. Now, we made a detailed video comparing the Dimensity 9400E inside the Realme GT7 to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 inside the OnePlus 13R. Now, if you haven't watched that video yet, a link should pop up right now. Go definitely watch it. But the long and short of it is the fact that, the 9400E's CPU performance is better, whereas the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 has a better GPU. Now, the Realme GT7 scores higher in Antutu and Geekbench, and even in our 30-minute CPU throttle test, it shows better stability and higher average GIPs. This is also because the 9400E actually has more powerful big and medium cores compared to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Now, I did mention in my previous obvious video that the GPU performance is better on the OnePlus 13R, and therefore you can see that you get better best loop scores, you get better FPS in 3D Mark Wildlife stress test with the OnePlus 13R, as well as slightly better FPS in games like Genshin Impact. That said, I feel like the GT7 definitely runs cooler compared to the OnePlus 13R. Not like the OnePlus 13R gets too hot, but the thermal efficiency seems to be better here. Because the GT7 has a massive 7700mm square vapor cooling chamber, but that's not it. It also has a 4400mm square graphene layer on top of the battery itself. By the way, with both the phones, you do get LPDDR5X RAM type and UFS 4.0 storage, which is standard for most flagship phones these days. Now, when it comes to actual performance grunt, the OnePlus 13R seems to be better, but when it comes to thermal efficiency, the Realme GT7 is better. And it also helps with better battery life with the GT7 that we got. Of course, the fact that the GT7 has a larger 7000 mAh battery compared to the 6000 mAh that you get with the OnePlus 13R is one of the reasons why. But more importantly, it's also tuned well. So basically what we got is 9 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time with the GT7 as opposed to 8 hours and 30 minutes that we get with the OnePlus 13R. Both are very, very good, but Realme will definitely have better battery autonomy. Now, when it comes to charging speeds, Realme charges faster with its 120 watt charger. It takes about 40 minutes for a full charge, whereas the OnePlus 13R takes about 50 to 53 minutes for a full charge using its 80 watt charger. Network capabilities of both the phones are actually fantastic because you know what, you do get support for multiple 5G bands with Jio working exceptionally well. It is notorious for having bad 5G performance in Pune, but that wasn't really the case with both these phones. You also get support for all your networking standards like Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4 and NFC. Alright, now time to talk about the cameras, and the camera setup is largely similar on both because you get a proper triple camera setup with a primary, a telephoto and an ultrawide and a selfie camera at the front, but there are slight differences. So the primary camera on the OnePlus 13R is the LYT700, and with the GT7 what you get is the Sony IMX906. You must be like, hey Yasha, that's like completely different sensors, but no, not really. They're actually different names for the same sensor, by the way. You also do get an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and a 50MP 2x Samsung JN5 telephoto camera. But the advantage on Realme is the selfie camera because you get a larger resolution 32 megapixel selfie camera as opposed to 16MP on the OnePlus. Now these are hardware specs. Let's just quickly take a look at the pictures to figure out which one does better in all of the scenarios that we generally test. Now Realme's problem begins with over sharpening the primary camera details. 100% crop reveals that the 13R's detail retention is definitely much better. Now interestingly, that's also true for the ultra wide angle shots that we captured, and that's also true for the 2x samples that we captured with the telephoto camera. Realme just loves over sharpening things. The HDR tuning is actually good on both, but I feel like OnePlus manages to pull a little bit more detail from the shadow portion of the image, whether it's shot using the primary or the ultra wide. Now talking about colors, just like Vivo and Xiaomi phones, with Realme now you get two new color mode options. Basically there's a vibrant option and a crisp option. Now I don't know why Realme is calling the natural color mode or the neutral color mode crisp, because it's kind of odd name for that. But yeah, vibrant is very vibrant and crisp is close to neutral. So we compared the vibrant mode shot of the GT7 with the OnePlus 13R's image, and it pretty much looks the same. But when you switch to the crisp mode on the GT7, the colors are toned down and it looks kind of true to life. So I feel like color reproduction is better on Realme compared to OnePlus. In fact, when we shot pictures of friends and family to check the skin tone, our observation was the same. The crisp mode produces colors or skin tones that are closer to real life, and it is definitely better than what OnePlus is achieving here. Now talking about color science consistency, again Realme beats OnePlus. Now portraits, again Realme beats OnePlus. Now while the edge cutout and the semantic segmentation are largely similar, the colors are better on Realme's image. The OnePlus 13R's image doesn't look as impressive as Realme's here if you take a look at it. Now thanks to the fact that the GT7 has a better selfie camera, the 32 megapixel selfie camera, it actually helps in retaining more details when you're shooting in daylight, and you also do get better skin tones, which is nice. And even Realme's selfie portraits look better with better edge cutout and more details compared to OnePlus. However, one area where OnePlus sort of pulls ahead is in low light performance, because it's definitely brighter with more details as well. In fact, even with the ultra wide angle camera, we noticed that OnePlus has a brighter exposure as opposed to Realme. But yeah, I mean, details more or less are similar with the ultra wide angle camera in low light. In telephoto, again, you get brighter images in low light from OnePlus compared to Realme. Low light selfies are again better on OnePlus compared to Realme. Now let's talk about video recording, and Realme has an immediate advantage in the capabilities of the cameras, because with the primary camera you can shoot 4K 60 FPS videos, you can shoot 4K 120 FPS videos, you can shoot 8K 30 FPS videos, and you can also shoot 4K 60 FPS videos in Dolby Vision format. All the OnePlus can do is 4K 60 FPS with the primary camera, that's it. In fact, OnePlus's selfie cameras can only shoot 1080p 30 FPS videos, whereas Realme can shoot 4K 60 FPS videos with the selfie camera as well. Now of course Realme has better capabilities, but when we compared the SDR video recording recording on both the phones, it is largely similar. Basically, you do get similar amount of details, very good stabilization and HDR performance as well, which is also true for the ultra wide angle camera, which basically tops out at 1080p 30 fps on both the phones. However, it goes without saying that Realme's selfie camera video recording is definitely better. We also shot some low light videos with both the phones just to see how they perform, and we noticed that OnePlus seems to be better here again, just like how it performed with photography. Even in videography, the low light performance seems to be better compared to Realme. See, overall, if you look at it, the GT7 seems to have the major advantage when it comes to most aspects of the camera performance itself, like you can tell. But in certain very important parameters like low light performance, OnePlus 13R is better. But overall, if you look at it between the two phones, I'd definitely pick the GT7 for camera performance. Alright, now time to talk about the software on both these phones. Basically, what you get with the OnePlus 13R is OxygenOS 15 based on Android 15, and OnePlus is promising 4+6 years of software updates, which is exactly what Realme is also promising for Realme UI 6 based on Android 15. Also, when you take the phone out of the box, the OnePlus 13R definitely has a cleaner install where you don't get too many unwanted third-party apps or bloatware apps like we would call it. There is no glance integration, all of which, by the way, is there with the GT7. Of course, you can uninstall all these apps, you can switch off glance integration, but it is there by default. Now, when you compare the software features basically with OxygenOS and Realme UI, both are largely very similar because you get all of the same things, right? You have Flux themes, you have live activities, you get O+ Connect for transferring media to iPhones, you get the smart sidebar, you get split screen, you get large folders, you get floating windows, app lock, and a whole lot more. Now, with AI features, Realme has a slight bit of upper hand, but let me tell you the similar AI features on both. Basically, you get AI Eraser, AI Detail Boost, AI Unblur, AI Reflection Eraser, AI Notes Assistant, and both these phones also support Circle to Search. Now, these are the features that are similar on both. But with Realme, what you get extra are AI Planner, AI Translator, and AI Smart Loop. Now, Smart Loop and Translator I've already spoken about, but AI Planner is new and it's very interesting. Basically, it activates with a double tap on the back and it can read event posters or pages like Book My Show listing, and it automatically adds events to your calendar. So simply put, Realme software experience has more AI features. OnePlus's software experience is cleaner. Now, if you've watched the video till now, you would have realized that both these phones are very good, and picking one as a winner was going to be a tough task. And it is. Because the Realme GT7 is better than the OnePlus 13R when it comes to battery life. It is also better than the OnePlus 13R when it comes to thermal efficiency because it's more stable and it doesn't throttle as much. It's also got better IP rating. There are more AI features in the software, which some people might care about. And largely, I prefer the camera performance on the GT7 compared to the OnePlus 13R. Meanwhile, OnePlus definitely has a better build quality with better materials used in the build itself. You also do get better performance, by the way. You get cleaner software, and most importantly, the alert slider, which is definitely going to go away soon. And I know that a lot of people care about this. So once again, we have reached a stalemate. I can't pick a winner. I have laid out the individual advantages of each, and based on what you see or what you saw in the comparison, you can make a choice. Now, which one of these two would you pick? Let us know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.